If you're not on social media, you don't exist. It's no longer important what kind of life you've got going offline. What matters is your online presence. Modern platforms where people share their opinions were created by specific corporations with clear rules, although they're not always that specific. And it turns out that it's the developers of the platform that determine the direction of users' discussion. For example, you can talk badly about whites, but if you criticize blacks, you get banned. And I'm not talking about skin color, but rather two different groups in a vacuum. The lion's share of social communication takes place in social media. Our attention is focused on it, which means that the rules formed by the corporations affect our behavior, and moreover, even our consciousness. You don't have to go far for examples. There is this one site that started as a warm and fuzzy video hosting site and has now turned into the main platform of the 21st century. Gone are the times when its creators stated their mission naively. It's just a site where every user can watch videos, upload and share them.
And that's cool. And that's pretty much all there is to say.
And off it went. Selling to Google, monetization, advertising, billions made on content for children, fraud, expensive production and numerous rules that are supposed to regulate this media monster. At first, there were unambiguous rules, such as not allowing porn or gore content, but later restrictions on sensitive and controversial topics were added. They literally call it controversial topics, so that the authors would think twice. Does my content offend anyone? Does it have a positive vibe? And more recently, YouTube has reached a new level. It added self-censorship. Now, absolutely all YouTubers evaluate their content based on how well it suits the platform and advertisers. We're obliged to indicate if a video contains obscene language, for example. But not everything is so simple. Then the author thinks, well, okay, let's say I say the word fuck, but because I said it 30 seconds after the start of the video and the word is not in the title, I'll keep my monetization. But if it's in the title, then you're screwed and you won't get any money. But that's okay. This concept is easy to understand logically. Just wait for 30 seconds and you can cuss a little. But when it comes to insults, it becomes less clear. Look, if a video contains criticism of some groups and the goal is not to insult them, then it seems okay. But at the same time, if these groups can be offended in principle, then it is no longer allowed, even if all your content is made within educational and news context. How to draw the line between not wanting to offend someone and having the opportunity to be offended is not clear. And my favorite example is content featuring violence. It is better to show any such scenes in this way, and you also aren't allowed to show lawlessness on the part of law enforcement. Luckily, they've recently made exceptions for educational content. So, when we post our videos, we have to think about whether it hurts someone's feelings and whether we are showing the scenes of violence. Here is an important point. We begin to think about it ourselves when writing a script, editing it, coming up with visuals so as not to violate the rules of the platform. And with constant self-editing, it leaves its footprint on our consciousness. You will be afraid to say anything against BLM or feminists, whether you want it or not. Well, that's just an example. By the way, our video about BLM protests is still demonetized. Even just now, I wanted to say mayhem, and then I censored myself. These rules are already in my head. Bear in mind that the video didn't contain insults of any groups, nor scenes of violence, but apparently the topics tackled in it were delicate, so to speak, and someone might get offended. You probably think, why should I care about this? After all, I'm just the end consumer, the part of the audience. But you get slightly castrated content. The author's initial point gets skewed. I want to say more, but I can't. Just don't think that I'm complaining right now. Thanks to YouTube, we exist and we're all here. If not for this platform, I would have to work at a factory. It's just a reflection of our reality. Internet sites occupy an important place in our lives. They influence our behavior, perception, and even consciousness. Here on YouTube, we play a game where the developers of the platform are only interested in positive content because it means more advertising, which means more money. And we ourselves smooth the rough edges in our opinions so as not to fall under the restrictions. Because of course, we too are interested in views and income. All of the players understand what is happening, but it's not common to talk about it. And if you enjoy these mind games and questions that don't have unambiguous answers, then we're going to continue. So, at the beginning of this year, the internet was shocked by an event that directly affected the life of every person around the world, and especially in Russia. And yes, we will look at this event through the prism of the citizens of the vast motherland. Trump was blocked on Twitter. True social chaos began after that. A bunch of people called it censorship. Another bunch yelled that censorship can only be imposed by the state, and some compared it all with Russia. It was totally messed up. Let's first talk about the analogies that people came up with. The wildest thing for me was trying to compare the situation with Russia. If you somehow have been under a rock, here is the thing in a nutshell. After Trump's defeat in the election, he did not accept the results and disputed them. To feel how ridiculous it is to pull an American eagle over a Russian bear, you just have to imagine the following. Let's say Vladimir Putin loses the presidential election, then goes to the Supreme Court to appeal against the decision, but the Supreme Court denies him. From the outside, it looks absolutely normal. Only in reality, you need to understand that all courts are under his wing. You don't want to bite the hand that feeds you, do you? But this is what happened in America. The president lost and went to the Supreme Court, but it denied his appeal. And it wasn't even possible to portray Democrats as the evil that bribed everyone. The thing is that the Supreme Judges are Republicans. Only 3 of them were appointed by the Democrats and another 3 were put up there by Trump himself. And these judges didn't find grounds for revising the election results. Actually, I've got a hypothesis that Russian-speaking people so willingly come up with an image of a single entity that controls everything within other countries because they themselves are used to living under the centralized power. They believe that it is impossible that 3 branches of government don't obey one person, but control each other and compete with each other. Well, okay, I got carried away. The bottom line is that on January the 6th, Trump gathered his supporters outside the White House and pumped them with a cheerful speech. The emotional charge of his message was like this.
Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about. And to use a favorite term that all of you people really came up with, we will stop the steal. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. And we're going to the Capitol, and we're going to try and give. The Democrats are hopeless.
And then the storming of the Capitol happened, with cool pictures of shamans, joyful men, and thieves. But unfortunately, it didn't end so well and resulted in 5 lost lives. After that, Twitter first issued warnings to Trump and blocked him for a while, but Donald was not going to calm down, and he posted something like this.
The 75 million great American patriots who voted for me will have a giant voice long into the future. They will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. To all those who have asked, I will not be going to the inauguration on January the 20th.
Twitter took this very seriously in view of the recent tragic events and banned Trump in the end. And then almost all corporations supported the ban. And again, we're asking the question how to treat all this. This situation requires your personal assessment, and it depends on what picture you've got in your head. And I guarantee that with the addition of details, this assessment will change. Look, Trump was banned on Twitter. Boo! Bastards! It's censorship! Trump was banned on Twitter and on all other platforms. Boo! Every platform is controlled by the Democrats! Trump was banned on Twitter and other platforms because his actions led to real deaths, and his claim that the elections were rigged was not confirmed by any authority. even those in which his associates work. They blocked him due to a cascading effect because those businesses don't want to have such a toxic user whose actions recently led to riots and death. No, well, let's discuss this. And now various concerns come into play. Do Democrats control all corporations? Has Trump personally ruined his relationship with the platforms? Have the shutdowns of the Parler servers been adequate? And what is freedom of speech? In this episode, we will focus on the latter, freedom of speech. What is it about anyway? Is it about saying whatever you want, whatever's in your head? What if it's the head of a psychopath or a terrorist? In this case, we can cut off some obvious things like calls to go out and kill someone, but sometimes lethal accidents happen even without specific directives. If all of us were robots, then there was no command from Trump to go out, smash things and kill. He only said that people should go to the Capitol. The rest wasn't voiced. But humans are not robots. You sitting on your couch might be smart and possess all the critical thinking in the world, but in reality, that speech led to rather unfortunate circumstances, to put it mildly. Or how are we supposed to react to his statements that the coronavirus isn't worse than the flu? It's one thing when a bunch of hype seekers was claiming it at the dawn of the pandemic here on YouTube, but to hear this from the President of the United States. How many people could be affected by this? How many people were not helped due to the hospitals being overloaded? Some of those people perhaps could have made it until the vaccine arrived. And what about those people who believed him and decided that malaria medication worked against coronavirus? Where is the line between allowing freedom of speech and banning a psycho? And here we get to play the judge, someone who evaluates the situation and makes a verdict. Even now, you are evaluating Trump's behavior, Twitter's actions, and my words. This is great, but ultimately you do not bear the burden of responsibility to humanity. The biggest thing that depends on you is hitting the like or dislike button. And you can also write some crap in the comments. Meanwhile, Donald was followed by 89 million people, and his words could be interpreted in different ways. For example, his final tweet that he will not be at the inauguration was viewed by Twitter as, "You can safely do something dirty to those present at the event because I will not be there." And obviously you and I won't see his tweet that way, but given the so-called assault of the Capitol and the victims, anything could have happened here. But who should decide all this? Probably the court, you will say. But in our time, the courts are becoming outdated. They're simply not quick enough to react. Let me clarify this. They continue to deal with cases of theft, robbery, violence, and other things. They also tackle issues that transition from offline to online, for example, online fraud. But purely online matters which have to do with affecting people's consciousness are regulated by the platforms. They are modern judges. And beside them, no one can do it. It's very easy to explain. They own the platforms, they have access to big data and can quickly respond to a new tweet. The speed of reaction to the violation is much faster than what courts can offer, and it meets modern needs. Whether we like it or not, we depend on their perception of what is bad and what is good. And if you look at the bottom line, for me the Trump story looks like this. The most public person who seized power and didn't want to give it up didn't consider the option of defeat.
Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Get rid of the ballots and we'll have a very peaceful, there won't be a transfer, frankly, there'll be a continuation.
He didn't accept the fact that there was no falsification and pushed people to fight like hell in the Capitol, where some of them eventually died. Due to that, businesses didn't want to provide him with further services. After all, no one was outraged, at least in Russia, where Skoda and Nivea refused to sponsor the hockey championship in Belarus, because in that case there was an obvious villain and wasn't about freedom of speech but about money, so most people didn't have an emotional response. Here is another example. Where were these Russian opponents of censorship when Kadyrov's Instagram was blocked? Back then, Facebook openly stated that it was executing the decision of American law, but somehow this didn't lead to outrage among the public. The Russian people were more worried about the blocking of the American president by the American company than when the same was done to the head of the subject of the Russian Federation.
Boney, if you end up in a similar situation, you will change your mind.
But I was in it, and I still am. All those videos on controversial topics, both here and on our Russian channel, are still demonetized. Moreover, when this whole coronavirus thing began, YouTube turned off monetization for everyone who spoke out on the topic. And YouTube was right. Yes, we personally suffered from that, but it weeded out a lot of those who made content solely for the sake of money because those videos were very popular. And we're not saying it to sound like the nice guys, as we have stated before on our Russian channel.
Да и в целом вся эта ситуация с демонетайзом, мы ее оцениваем скорее положительно. Потому что статистически пользы больше. Потому что лучше, если отсеют всех хайпажоров, пусть и пострадают некоторые каналы типа нашего.
But despite the fact that corporations are the judges of our interaction, thanks to them and their platforms, people can unite, communicate, and coordinate their actions. These very people can make a bunch of high-class suits pay billions of dollars. And let it be the introduction for our next episode. It's going to be about the coordination of people on the internet. In the meantime, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. We'll be back soon. And I'm bonyright.